They used to call me the smartest dog in Rock Hill Airport's security unit. They gave me medals, slapped my handler on the back and said, "That Duke, hell, he can sniff out tomorrow before it even shows up." But that day, right there at gate D7, with the overhead speakers crackling and the floor smelling like sun-warmed vinyl, I caught a scent no human ever could: fear and blood. But not the kind from wounds, the kind that hadn't happened yet. She walked in with a pregnant belly and 2 paper bags, moving slow, almost too calm for a place filled with rush and goodbyes. She wore sunglasses too dark for indoors, the kind you put on when you don't want the world seeing your eyes. I saw her, and I knew. My throat growled first, then my legs locked up. My heart slammed against my chest like it used to in Kandahar, right before a blast, when I wasn't allowed to be called a soldier, just a K9 asset. "Duke, quiet!" Tom tugged my lead, but I couldn't stop. I barked. Not because I panicked. I barked because I was trying to warn them. And then she collapsed. The bags flew. A manila envelope skidded across the floor. Written in shaky black ink, just one word: "Forgive me." The whole concourse froze. Time held its breath, but not me. I moved in, fast. I didn't smell labor. I didn't smell illness. I smelled a secret. And somehow, I knew. Whatever she was carrying inside her, it wasn't just a child. I barked until my throat turned raw, until my lungs ached and my handler's voice blurred into the background. Nobody listened. Not the TSA agents sipping their coffee. Not the travelers pushing carry-ons past security. Not even Tom, my partner, my friend, who should have known better. She collapsed hard. The kind of fall that makes your stomach drop even if you weren't watching. Her bags flew. One clipped the corner of a seat. Another spun across the floor. The envelope spilled out with them. "Forgive me." That's what it said, scrawled in a way that looked like it had been written with shaking hands and not enough time. People gasped. Some stood still. Others stepped back like she might explode. But me? I moved. I didn't hesitate. Didn't wait for the okay. I pulled hard enough that Tom stumbled with me. I had to get to her. There was something in the air around her. Something thick. Not like drugs. Not like explosives. I'd smelled both in my time. This was different. It was like grief had a scent. And guilt. And something worse. Something that clung to the back of my throat like dust from a forgotten place. Tom dropped to one knee beside her. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" His voice went soft, but his body tensed. I could feel it through the leash. I circled her once, close. Not a growl this time, just short, frantic whines. I knew. My kind. We know. Her skin was pale. Too pale. The way soldiers looked just before the chopper came in. But it wasn't her that scared me. It was what she clutched. A chain peeked out between her fingers. Metal tag. I'd seen one just like it long ago, when I was just a green pup in the desert, too young to understand why men cried over names stamped in steel. Tom froze when he saw it. His whole body went still. For 1 second, he wasn't Officer Gallagher. He was just Tom, the man who lost something a long time ago and never told me what. He took the tag gently from her hand, eyes squinting, like he was seeing a ghost. "Jesus," he whispered. "No way." The name on the tag. I couldn't read it, of course, but I remembered the name when Tom said it out loud. Matthew Keegan. I knew that name. Not because someone told me. Because one time, back in Kandahar, a man with hands rough like bark and a voice full of smoke knelt beside me and said, "You take care of him, you hear? He's got a good heart, but not enough luck." That was Keegan. And now his name was clutched in the hand of a woman carrying a child and a secret. The EMTs arrived, all clipped voices and wheeled stretchers. They strapped her in, checked her vitals, called out numbers I didn't understand, but I understood Tom. He stood there like someone had punched the air out of him, not moving, not blinking. "Tom," I whined low, nudging his boot. He didn't look at me, just stared after the stretcher as they rolled her toward the exit. Then he did something I'd never seen him do in all my years with him. He reached down, picked up the envelope she'd dropped and slid it into his coat without saying a word. No chain of custody, no logging it into evidence, just instinct. That's the funny thing about instincts. Everyone talks about mine, like I'm the one who knows when something's wrong. But I've watched Tom long enough to know. He's got them too, just buried a little deeper under uniforms and regrets. Later in the back office, he sat under that god-awful fluorescent light and stared at that envelope like it was a time bomb. He didn't open it right away, just turned it over in his hands, again and again. "You knew something, didn't you, boy?" he asked me. I didn't bark this time. I just lay at his feet, ears up, watching him the way I did when we were deployed, when he was shaking but tried not to show it. He opened it. Inside was a letter, creased, yellowed at the edges, written in a rush. "If you're reading this, it means I failed to keep my promise." That was the first line. He read it again, and again. And for the first time since we got back from the war, I saw Tom Gallagher cry. Not loud, not messy. Just a few tears that slipped past without permission. Because this wasn't just a letter. It was a warning. A whisper from a man who was supposed to be dead. And I was the only one who'd known it was coming. That night, Tom didn't say much. He just poured himself a drink and sat on the old couch with me at his feet. We both stared at the dog tag on the table. The chain was broken. The edges were worn. But the name, Keegan, was still there, stamped deep. The woman, Ellie, her ID had said, was at the hospital, stable, but unconscious. And me, I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, listening to the wind rattle the window, thinking about the way her scent had shifted just before she fell. Something was inside her, something no one else could smell. And whatever it wasn't done yet. I never thought I'd see Tom like that again. Shoulders hunched like he'd been hit by something bigger than a bomb. Eyes fixed on nothing, holding a dog tag like it was a ghost. The name haunted him, I could tell. Keegan. Matthew Keegan. The way Tom had said it, barely above a whisper, like it had too much weight to carry. That night, the air in our apartment didn't feel right. Too quiet. Too still. Even the old refrigerator in the kitchen didn't hum the way it used to. Tom sat at the edge of the couch, elbows on knees, and just stared, not at me, not at the floor, but at the envelope, that same one he'd slipped into his coat back at the airport. I laid beside him, eyes half open, ears twitching at every creak in the walls. I didn't sleep, not really. Not when I could still smell her in my nose. That woman. That scent. Pregnant, yes. But something else. Something I couldn't name. Like electricity and sadness and old buried secrets. Morning came slow. Tom didn't say much. He poured coffee. Forgot to drink it. The cup just sat there, steaming until it got cold. Then he picked up the dog tag again, ran his thumb over the name like it might vanish if he stopped touching it. Finally, around 9, his phone buzzed. He answered with a gruff, "Yeah," the way he always did. But this time, he stood straight. "She's awake?" he asked, voice tightening. "She asked for me." He didn't even hang up properly, just shoved the phone in his pocket and grabbed his badge. "Let's go, Duke," he said. And so we went. The hospital wasn't far, 10 minutes through light traffic, but Tom drove like he had something boiling in his chest. Didn't speak the whole ride, just gripped the steering wheel like it had answers. We walked into the hospital through the side entrance. Nurses looked up but didn't stop us. They knew us, or maybe they sensed something, that same weird tension, like a story was unfolding and they didn't want to be part of it. She was in room 312. I remember the number because it smelled different from all the others, like clean sheets, antiseptic, and something older. Memory, maybe. Tom paused outside her door. He looked in through the glass panel. She was sitting up in bed, blanket around her waist, hands nervously twisting at the corners. Her eyes were wide, scanning everything, but not afraid. No, this wasn't fear. It was searching. Like she was trying to connect dots she'd only just discovered were there. She looked younger in the daylight, her skin pale, lips dry, but her eyes, those were old eyes, not in years, in pain. Tom pushed the door open, slow. She looked up, and for just a second, something passed between them. I don't know what it was. Recognition, maybe. A flicker, like two people who had shared a dream and just realized it wasn't one. She didn't speak at first. Neither did Tom. He stepped inside. I stayed at the threshold. Then, her voice, soft, dry. "You knew him, didn't you?" Tom didn't pretend not to understand. "I served with him," he said quietly. "In Kandahar. Last tour." She nodded, like she already knew that. "He wrote about you," she said. Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. "Said you were the only man he trusted." Tom looked away. I knew that look. Guilt wrapped in silence. Regret you don't know what to do with. She reached under her pillow and pulled out another letter, older than the one from yesterday. Folded too many times, edges soft like cloth. "He wrote this for me," she said. "Before I was born. My mom kept it hidden all my life." Tom took it like it was made of glass. "I only found it after she died," Ellie whispered. "A few weeks ago." I stepped inside then, slow. She looked at me for the first time. Her hand reached out, not to touch, but to acknowledge. Like she recognized something in me too. "I came here because people were watching me," she said. "Someone broke into my apartment. Didn't steal anything. Just searched." "For what?" Tom asked. She looked down at her belly, then back up. "Something my father left behind." Tom sat down slowly in the chair beside her bed, letter still unopened in his lap. His face was pale. I sat by his feet. Her scent was stronger here. Not fear now. Not just sadness. It was heavy with something else. Like something growing inside her wasn't just life. It was truth. The kind that could break things if it got out. "There's more," she said. "My mother told me never to look for him. Said it would only bring pain." "She was right," Tom muttered. "But I couldn't stop," Ellie continued. "And now I don't think they're just after what he left. I think they're after me." Outside, a cart rattled down the hallway. Nurses laughed at something. Inside, it felt like the world was holding its breath. Tom finally opened the letter. His hands shook as he unfolded it. He didn't read it out loud, just sat there, mouth tight, eyes moving line by line. When he finished, he looked at her. "Your father. He wasn't just a soldier," he said. "He was carrying something he stole from a mission that didn't exist on paper." Ellie blinked. "What kind of something?" Tom looked down at the letter again. Names, coordinates, files. People who were never supposed to be born. Her hand clutched her blanket tighter. "I don't understand." I growled low then, not at her, not at Tom, at the hallway. Something didn't smell right. Tom stood fast, stepped to the window, looked out. Empty. But my nose knew better. He picked up the envelope again. "We're not safe here." Ellie looked confused. "This is a hospital." Tom shook his head. "Doesn't matter. If someone's still tracking what Keegan left behind, then they know about you. About this place. About me." He looked at me. I gave him the signal. One short bark, one nod of the head. He understood. "We're leaving," he said. "Now?" Ellie asked, panic rising in her voice. "Now," Tom said. "Do you trust me?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Good," he said, "because your life's about to get a whole lot more complicated." He helped her up gently. I stayed close to her side. She moved slow, her hand on the swell of her belly, breathing shallow. I didn't know what she was carrying. Not really. But I knew it wasn't just a baby. Whatever was inside her. It wasn't just life. It was the key to a past none of us wanted to remember. And a future none of us were ready for. It's funny how quickly the world can change. One moment, you're sitting in a hospital room watching a man hold a letter like it might bite him. The next, you're sneaking a pregnant woman out the back exit with the kind of urgency that only war or death can teach you. Tom didn't say much as we moved through the hallways. He walked in front, moving fast but not rushed. Controlled, like he used to on patrol. I stayed beside Ellie, close enough that I could feel her heartbeat through her steps. It was fast, off rhythm. I didn't like it. She smelled scared now. Not just worried, scared. But even through that, something about her scent stayed the same. Heavy, complex. Like it carried pieces of other people's memories. I'd never smelled anything like it. The elevator took forever. Tom hit the button 3 times before it dinged. When it did, we stepped inside. No one else joined us. Thank God. Ellie leaned against the wall, her breath short. "What if they're already watching?" she whispered. Tom didn't answer. He stared at the doors like he expected someone to break through them. "We're not doing anything illegal," she tried again. "Right?" Tom turned his head just slightly. "Depends who's watching." The doors slid open. I stepped out first. Old habit. My job wasn't to make friends or fetch tennis balls. I was trained to walk into the unknown and make sure it was safe before anyone else took a breath. I didn't smell danger in the parking garage, not yet. But something still felt wrong. Too quiet. Like the concrete walls were holding their breath. Tom helped Ellie into the back seat of the truck. I jumped in beside her. She reached out, her fingers resting on my shoulder. They were shaking. "You're not just a dog, are you?" she asked softly. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Tom answered for me as he climbed into the driver's seat. "He's more than that. He's Duke." We drove. No music. No talking. Just tires on asphalt and 1,000 questions no one had the guts to ask. The place we went to wasn't our home. Tom didn't take her there. Smart. Instead, We pulled into an old hardware store on the edge of town. One of those places that looks abandoned until you notice the surveillance cameras tucked behind the old signage. Tom had keys. We slipped in through the back. Inside it smelled like oil and dust. Safe. Ellie sat on an overturned bucket, arms wrapped around her belly. "Can you tell me now?" she said. "What's really going on?" Tom rubbed his face, then leaned against the wall. "Your dad, Keegan, was on a mission near Kandahar in 2003. It wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't logged. No backup, no comms. Just a clean team, dropped into the middle of nowhere." He paused, looked at her. "They were told they'd find weapons. What they found was data, files, names, maps, and something else, something they never told us about." Ellie swallowed hard. "Something like what?" Tom sighed. "We don't know, because Keegan never made it back." "But he did," she whispered. "He made it back enough to send you a letter. Enough to meet my mother." Tom nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's the part no one can explain." She reached into her jacket and pulled out another envelope. This was the one I found after my mom died. It was in a shoebox under the floorboards, along with some cash, a cassette tape, and a map of Arlington with a number written in the corner. Tom took the letter. "Read it silently." I watched his eyes. I've always been good at reading eyes. This one cut deep. "You were never meant to be part of this," he said after a long silence. Ellie looked down. "But I am." I moved closer, pressed my head against her knee. She didn't flinch, just stared down at me with those old, tired eyes that didn't belong on a woman her age. "I'm not crazy," she whispered. "I remember things I shouldn't, places I've never been, names that make my skin crawl." Tom knelt in front of her, something heavy behind his words. "You said someone broke into your place. Did they take anything?" She shook her head. "No, they just searched. Every drawer, every closet. But nothing was missing." "They weren't looking for money," Tom said. "They were looking for proof." "Proof of what?" He didn't answer. Not right away. Then, "Ellie, there's a chance, just a chance, that what your father found out there, it's inside you now." Her hands flew to her stomach. "The baby?" "No," he said quickly. "Not just that. I mean you. You might be carrying memories, codes, data that was never supposed to survive." I saw the moment it hit her. The way her breathing changed, the way her fingers tightened on her arms. She wasn't just scared now. She was unraveling. "I don't want this," she said. "I know," Tom replied. "Neither did Keegan. But it's here." She started to cry. Quiet, barely audible. And still that smell. It changed again. Pain. The real kind. The kind that doesn't bleed but never heals. I nudged her hand with my nose. She looked down, tried to smile. Failed. "What now?" she asked. Tom stood, pulled a small recorder from his jacket, one of the old ones, battery-powered. "We listen to the tape you found, and we figure out what your mother wanted you to know." He slid the cassette in, pressed play. For a moment, nothing. Then a woman's voice, soft, steady. "Ellie, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone, and I'm sorry. I wanted to protect you from all this, but I couldn't. Not forever. Your father was part of something he didn't understand. And when he tried to leave, they made sure he never spoke again. The voice cracked. I was pregnant when I escaped. They didn't know. I changed my name, moved a dozen times, but they always watched, always searched. A pause. You have his eyes. And something else, something I couldn't explain, not even to myself. You remember things you shouldn't. You feel things that don't belong to you. That's not madness, Ellie. That's memory. Inherited memory. You're not sick. You're a key. The tape clicked off. Ellie stared at nothing. A key to what? No one answered. Not yet. But I knew this. We weren't going back to normal. Not today. Not ever. Because whatever was inside her, it wasn't just data. It was a trigger. And someone, somewhere, was getting ready to pull it. You spend enough time around humans, you start to hear the things they don't say. The breaths that get caught in their chest. The way they stare too long at something that's no longer there. The words that never make it past their throat. Ellie didn't say much after the tape ended. She just sat there, eyes blank, lips pressed together like she was holding her whole self in place. Tom stood near the door, arms crossed, staring at nothing. And me. I lay down beside her, my head near her knee, ears tilted to the side, listening for more than just footsteps outside. I was listening for her. There's something you learn as a working dog, especially one trained for war, for loss, for the scent of grief. You learn that people don't fall apart all at once. They do it in pieces, quietly, when they think no one's watching. The woman on that tape, Ellie's mother, her voice had a tone I recognized. It was the same one I'd heard in barracks late at night, in whispers between soldiers who didn't think they'd make it home. The voice of someone trying to pass on everything they knew before it was too late. She didn't want me to know, Ellie said finally. Tom didn't respond. She hid it, all of it. He looked down at her. She was trying to protect you. Ellie gave a hollow laugh. By leaving me completely unprepared? She thought she had more time, he said softly. We all did. There was a pause, long enough to feel the weight of it settle in the room. I keep dreaming about places I've never been, she said. I see people, hear names. I wake up knowing things, sometimes in another language. Tom nodded. It's possible whatever Keegan was exposed to, it wasn't just intel. It was designed to be passed on, to survive. You mean like genetics? No, he said. Worse, like memory. I lifted my head. I'd seen this before. Not often, but enough to recognize it. Ellie stood, walked a few steps, then stopped. I don't want to be part of this, she said. Tom looked up. Neither did your dad. But he did what he had to do. She turned to face him. Do you believe he's dead? Tom hesitated. That was answer enough. I think they made it look that way, he said finally. I think what he found scared the hell out of someone. Enough that they erased him. Ellie's jaw clenched. And now they want to erase me too. The air grew heavy. The kind of quiet that only comes when people are making choices they can't undo. Tom stepped forward. We need to go off the grid, just for a little while. I have a place. Ellie glanced at me. Will he be there? Tom smiled faintly. He's always where I go. We left through the back. No lights, no phones. Just a beat-up Chevy pickup and a dog with more instincts than most men. The drive took hours. Dirt roads, dust kicking up behind us. We passed 3 towns so small they didn't even bother with stoplights. We ended up at a cabin tucked deep in the pines near a lake with no name. Tom had bought it years ago, back when sleeping through the night was still possible. Inside, it smelled like old wood, oil from his rifle case, and something deeper, something that always lives in places where men come to hide from themselves. Ellie stood by the fireplace, arms wrapped around her middle. "It's beautiful," she said. Tom nodded. "It's quiet." I walked a slow circle of the cabin, sniffing corners, checking windows. Clear, for now. Ellie found a spot on the worn leather couch. I curled up beside it. Tom sat in a chair across from us, his knees creaking louder than the wood. "What happens next?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "There's someone I need to talk to," he said. "Someone who used to work for NSA. Name's Cassie Rourke. She went dark about 6 years ago. Lives like a ghost now. But if anyone can make sense of that letter, that tape, it's her." "You trust her?" "She saved my life in Syria." Ellie nodded, like that was enough. Tom pulled out an old flip phone. One of those things the world forgot about after smartphones showed up. He pressed 3 numbers, then let it ring twice before ending the call. "She'll call back," he said. We waited. Outside, the wind picked up. The trees whispered secrets they didn't want to keep anymore. Ellie dozed off, curled into herself like someone who hadn't truly slept in weeks. I stayed close, watching the fire die down, my nose twitching every time the wind shifted. Then the phone rang. Tom answered, with a single word. "Yeah." A pause. Then his voice softened. "It's me." He stepped outside. I followed. The stars were out, crisp and sharp, like they'd been scrubbed clean. I could hear his voice, but not hers. She was too smart for that. Probably using scramblers, firewalls, whatever tech ghosts use to keep from being traced. But I could tell one thing: she wasn't surprised. When he came back in, he looked different, like a man who just remembered something he'd tried hard to forget. "She's in," he said, "but we've got to bring her something. Proof." Ellie sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Proof of what?" Tom looked at her, then at me. "We're going back to your apartment." Ellie's eyes widened. "It's not safe. That's why we go fast, in and out. You said there was a map, a tape, anything they didn't find the first time. We need it now." She didn't argue. She just nodded. And in that moment, I saw something in her shift. Not fear, not even courage. Resolve. The kind of look soldiers get when they stop running and start digging in. She didn't know what was inside her, but she was starting to understand that whoever wanted it was willing to do anything to get it. And I knew, deep down in my bones, that the past we were chasing wasn't buried. It was alive. Waiting. And it had just heard us coming. I always knew when Tom was lying. Not the big, obvious kind of lie. The kind kids tell when they say they didn't break the lamp. No, Tom lied in the way his breath changed, the way his right eye twitched just a little, the way his hand hovered over the gear shift longer than it needed to. He said this was just a quick in and out, said we'd be there 5 minutes tops, that we'd grab the tape, the map, whatever else Ellie had hidden, and then we'd be gone. But I could smell it on him. He knew we weren't just going to a memory. We were walking straight into something that remembered us. The drive back to her place was quiet. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the fields. Ellie sat in the back seat, holding the old cassette like it might break if she squeezed too hard. She didn't speak, not since we left the cabin. I caught her watching the trees go by. Her eyes were tired, but not the kind of tired that comes from lack of sleep. It was the kind you get when you start to realize your whole life might not have been your own. Tom pulled off the highway and onto a side road. A mile later, we reached the complex. Low income, 3 stories. Brick walls faded with time. One of those places that smelled like mildew in the halls, where the elevator always groaned before it opened. We parked in the back lot, near the dumpster. The air was thick with the kind of stillness I'd come to recognize. The kind that told you someone was watching, even if you couldn't see them. Tom scanned the lot. No movement. No cars that didn't belong. But I could feel it in my fur. The electricity. The tension. "This'll be fast," he said, more to himself than to us. Ellie led us through the rear entrance. Her keys shook in her hand as she unlocked the door. We took the stairs, not the elevator. Quiet steps. Controlled breathing. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor. She paused at the door. "They kicked it in," she said. "Replaced the lock after. Landlord didn't even ask." Tom nodded. "Go." She turned the key. The door opened with a slow creak. Inside, the air was stale, not just from being closed up, but from fear. I was in first. I swept the living room with my nose, then moved to the hallway. Every drawer had been pulled, every cabinet left open. Picture frames smashed. Even the couch cushions had been sliced open, like someone thought she'd hidden something inside the foam. Tom followed me in, gun low, but ready. "Go find it," he said to Ellie. She nodded and walked straight to the corner of the living room, where an old upright piano sat against the wall. It looked useless, a junk piece. But when she opened the lid, the hinges didn't creak. She reached inside, pulled out a wooden box. Simple. No lock, just a sliding lid. Inside were photos, black and white, faded at the edges. A man and a woman laughing beside a military jeep. Ellie's mother. Her father. She froze. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the man from my dreams." She held the photo up to Tom. He took it, studied it. "Yeah," he said. "That's Keegan." Beneath the photos was a folded sheet of paper, a map. Arlington, with a number written in ink, 0471, and a velvet pouch. She opened it slowly, like it might explode. Inside, a brass key. Ellie stared at it. "I've seen this before," she whispered. "In my sleep." Tom stepped closer. "What is it?" "I don't know," she said. "But it's real." Then I heard it. A sound too soft for humans. A floorboard shifting in the hallway. I stiffened, turned my head. Tom saw me move. He raised his gun. We weren't alone. "Get back," Tom said, stepping in front of Ellie. The door slammed shut. I lunged, but I was too late. 2 men burst through from the hallway, both dressed like repair workers, but the smell gave them away. Cold sweat, gun oil, and plastic explosives. One grabbed Ellie. The other raised a baton toward Tom, but they didn't expect me. I hit the one near Ellie first. My teeth found his arm. He screamed, tried to shake me off, but I held. Tom fired. One shot to the leg. The man dropped. The second man turned to run, straight into Tom's shoulder. They both went down. Ellie scrambled back toward the piano, cradling the box. I growled low, standing over the first man. He wasn't moving. Tom pinned the second guy, pulled his ID. Fake, of course. He looked up at Ellie. "You okay?" She nodded, barely. "Who are they?" Tom stood, breathing hard. "Same people who were watching you. They knew we'd come back." Ellie held out the key. Her hand was shaking. "This means something, doesn't it?" Tom nodded. "Yeah, and it's time we find out what." We left the apartment with sirens already in the distance. Tom had called it in anonymously, said there was a break-in, gave them just enough to respond without questions. We didn't go back to the cabin. Instead, we headed east, toward Arlington. Toward whatever was waiting for us in box 0471. Ellie sat in the back, holding that key like it was the last solid thing in the world. And me, I stayed between them, watching the road, ears twitching, because whatever was waiting for us next, it wasn't going to knock. It was already inside. There's a weight that settles on a man's shoulders when he knows he failed someone he swore to protect. I've seen it in war. Seen it in hospitals, funerals, in the quiet of kitchens, after the knock at the door. But I never saw it on Tom. Not like I did that night. And I carried it too. Not because anyone told me to, but because I felt it. Her name was Ellie. She trusted us, trusted me, and we left her alone. It started after we reached Arlington. The key she'd found opened a safety deposit box in a granite-faced bank that looked like it hadn't updated a thing since the Cold War. The kind of place where people still wore suits and whispered across marble floors. Box 0471. Ellie handed over the key, and the manager, a nervous man with slicked-back hair and a badge that read R. Loeb, led us downstairs. Past rows of vaults, the air was cold, still, like a museum where the exhibits breathed. The box slid open with a low groan. Inside was an envelope marked "Eyes Only" and an old brass pocket watch. Ellie held the envelope like it might shatter. Tom stood behind her, tense, watching the door. I sat by her feet, eyes fixed on the hallway behind us. She opened it slow. Inside, photos, maps, and a document with a government seal I recognized. I'd seen it on crates we guarded overseas, a red triangle with no name. Tom read the top line out loud. Project Helix. Ellie's face went pale. There were names listed, coordinates, DNA sequences, a chart marked Viable Subjects with 5 code numbers. She found hers, H7. The others were blank or redacted. Tom stared at the list. "This isn't just a report," he said. "It's a map. A trail of what they did and what they planned." She turned to the last page, her name, her date of birth, and one line highlighted in yellow. Anomalous genetic markers confirmed. Matches. Project Helix profile. Then, something strange happened. The pocket watch, quiet until then, started to tick. Tick, tick, tick. Ellie jumped, dropped it. Tom picked it up. It wasn't wound. "Maybe it doesn't need to be," she whispered. That night we stayed in a small roadside motel outside town, one of those places with buzzing lights and sheets that smelled like bleach and mold all at once. Tom took first watch. I stayed with Ellie. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that envelope like it might come alive. "I used to think I was broken," she said. "The dreams, the voices, remembering places I'd never been." I nudged her hand. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I think I was made to remember," she said. I think that's what they did. She fell asleep sometime after that. Light, restless. Tom took second watch. Around 3 a.m., he stepped outside to make a call. Said he needed to update Cassie. That's when I knew. Something wasn't right. I stood by the door, listened. Then I heard it. A floorboard creak in the hallway. Not ours. I growled low, but it was already too late. By the time I got the door open, she was gone. The window in the bathroom had been forced. The lock snapped. Tom came running back inside, gun drawn. "She's not here," I said with my eyes, my growl, my stance. His face went cold. We tore through the parking lot. But no cars had left. No tire marks. They'd been quiet, fast, professional. They knew she had the files, the key, the bloodline. Tom slammed his fist against the doorframe. "God damn it!" I stayed still. I didn't bark, because barking didn't help. Not this time. This time, we'd failed. And whoever had her now, they weren't taking her back to ask questions. They were taking her back to erase the answers. The room felt colder without her in it. That old motel with the flickering neon sign and the scratchy bedspread, it had the silence of an empty church after the candles go out. Tom paced for a while, fists clenched, jaw tight. I stayed by the window. My eyes scanned the lot, the street, the tree line. But I already knew. She was gone. Taken. And it wasn't just a grab. This had been planned. Precise. No broken glass. No raised voices. Just a smooth, quiet erasure. Like she'd never been there to begin with. That's how these people worked. They didn't need to storm in guns blazing. All they had to do was wait for you to breathe too deep, blink too long. Tom sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. "Cassie's not answering," he said. "I left 3 encrypted voicemails and a dead drop ping. She'll see it." He looked at me. I looked back. Neither of us said what we were really thinking. What if we were already too late? But Ellie wasn't just a person now. She was the key to something older, darker. And someone had just turned that key. By noon, we were back at Tom's storage unit. It wasn't labeled. Just a rusted-out number and a keypad that beeped when he entered a 6-digit code I'd never seen him use before. Inside was a different version of him. Cases of gear, surveillance equipment, fake IDs, cash bundles, and a laptop encased in a fireproof shell. He plugged it in and brought up a black terminal screen, a secure line. He typed for a few minutes. Strings of code, locations, timestamps. Then he hit enter. A map appeared. 5 red dots blinked across the U.S. He leaned in. "These are helix signatures," he muttered. "Same genetic pattern, same activation response." One of the dots blinked faster. It was in Utah, a town called Pine Hollow. We both stared at it. "Someone else just woke up," Tom said. "It wasn't Ellie. It was someone like her. And if they were waking up now, it meant the program was running again." He looked at me. "We find this kid, Duke, before they do." We hit the road by dusk. Drove through the night. The highways were quiet. Empty. The kind of quiet you feel in your chest. Tom didn't say much. Just stared ahead. I watched him. Watched the way his hands gripped the wheel. The way his eyes never left the horizon. We were both thinking about her. Not just whether she was alive, but what she was becoming. Because she'd changed. We saw it. The way she moved. The things she knew. The way that old pocket watch started ticking the moment she touched it. She wasn't just remembering. She was activating. We made it to Pine Hollow by morning. Snow covered the town like a forgotten blanket. Small shops, empty streets, a church bell that hadn't rung in years. Tom pulled us into a diner parking lot. We watched the entrance of the school across the street. Kids came out in groups, laughing, backpacks bouncing. Then we saw him, a boy, maybe 16, tall for his age, pale, thin, but alert. He looked over his shoulder 3 times before crossing the street. His name was Kane, and I knew, the second I caught his scent, that he was one of them. Same marker, same blood, same shadow in the eyes. Tom stepped out of the truck, approached slow. "Hey there, son," he said. Kane froze. Tom held up his hands. "Not here to hurt you." But the boy was already running. I jumped out the passenger side and gave chase. Not to bite, not to tackle, just to keep him in sight. He ran through alleys, behind dumpsters, down icy side roads, and then he slipped. I reached him first, stopped in front of him, didn't growl, just sat. He looked up at me, breathing hard. "You were in my dream," he said. Tom caught up seconds later. Kane didn't fight. He just stared at me like I was the only thing that made sense anymore. They talked for a long time. Tom told him about Ellie, about Project Helix. Kane said he didn't know what he was, but he remembered things, places, people who never existed, and he felt it, something calling him. "I thought I was going crazy," he said. "No," Tom told him. "You're just waking up." Back at the motel, Kane sat on the bed, staring at a notebook filled with strange sketches, symbols, maps. He opened to the back page. There, in a corner, was the same number Ellie found. 0471. "I don't know why I drew that," he said. "I just did." Tom looked at me. I looked at the door, because I could feel it again. The hum, the shift, the quiet click of something ancient turning in the dark. We weren't alone, not anymore. We never stayed in one place too long after that. Tom said it was better to keep moving. I agreed. My legs ached some days, old joints from old jumps, but I still moved better than most men half my age. And besides, I wasn't going to rest until I saw her again. Ellie. Not a day went by that I didn't catch her scent in my memory. Like pine needles after the rain. Like metal and heartbeat and something that didn't belong to this world. We had Kane now. And that boy, he was scared, sure. But he was something more too. Something beneath the surface. He didn't say much the first few days. Just kept sketching symbols into a worn leather journal. Circles. Eyes. A string of numbers that made Tom sit up straight more than once. Kane didn't know where they came from. He said they came in dreams. Sometimes Ellie was in them. Sometimes others. One night, he whispered to me while Tom slept in the front seat of the truck. "I saw her again," he said. "Ellie. She was in a white room, talking to someone who wasn't there." I laid my head across his lap. "She's trying to talk to me," he murmured, "through whatever they built in us." The next morning, Cassie called. Tom pulled over to a diner with bad coffee and slow Wi-Fi. I stayed under the booth while he plugged in the old secure laptop. Cassie's face flickered on screen, blurry, tired, all sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes. "I tracked the frequency spike," she said. "Whatever happened when Ellie touched that pocket watch, it pinged something buried deep in a black ops server that isn't supposed to exist anymore. Tom leaned in. What kind of something? Cassie didn't blink. Helix Phase 2. The line went quiet for a beat. Then Kane said softly, "What's Phase 2? Cassie stared at him, then glanced at Tom. "You didn't tell him?" "I figured you might do it better," Tom muttered. Cassie sighed. Phase 1 was about building them, designing children who could carry memory in the blood. Traits passed not through experience, but through genetic pattern. Like instincts on steroids. Phase 2, she said, is waking them up. Kane leaned back. "So Ellie waking up triggered all of us?" Cassie nodded. "It's not that she sent a signal. It's that you're all wired to respond when one of you reaches a certain threshold. She hit it first. You're next." Tom looked at the map again. One more dot was blinking. "She's not the only one anymore," Cassie added. "There's another. In the Upper Peninsula. Michigan." I growled low. I could feel it. A tug in my chest. Not danger exactly, but calling. "Who is it?" Kane asked. Cassie tapped a few keys. A name appeared on screen. Ava Monroe. Age, 17. Location, Whisper Lake, Michigan. She had no phone, no known relatives. Foster system dropout. No records after age 13. But there she was, blinking, waiting. We hit the road again. Through snow this time. Kane sat in the back seat with my head in his lap, flipping through his drawings. One caught Tom's eye. An old structure half buried in ice. Barbed wire. A tower. "You ever been there?" he asked. Kane shook his head. "Just in dreams." But when we reached Whisper Lake, we saw it. The same building. Old detention facility, shut down decades ago. We approached just before dawn. Kane stayed in the truck. Tom and I moved in quiet. My paws sank in the snow, but my steps were sure. I could smell her. Ava. She was inside. We found her in the lower level, curled in the corner of a rusted storage room. Pale, thin, eyes wide open. She didn't scream, didn't move, just looked at us like she'd been waiting. Tom raised his hands. "We're not here to hurt you." She stood slowly. "I know," she said. "You're the ones from the map." Then she looked down at me. "I saw you in my head," she said. I stepped closer. Let her touch my head. Her fingers were cold, but steady. Tom guided her back to the truck. She didn't speak again until we were 10 miles out of town. Then she said, "They're coming." Kane looked at her. "Who?" "The ones who built us." "How do you know?" She closed her eyes. "Because I dreamed it last night, and this morning, I wasn't dreaming anymore." Tom drove faster. "Me?" I didn't look back. I already knew what we were running from. I just didn't know yet. If we could run fast enough. By the time we reached the cabin in upstate New York, the storm was already chasing us. Snow came down in wet, heavy sheets, painting the woods in silence. It reminded me of deployment up north with the Coast Guard guys, back when my fur was darker and my bite was faster. But this wasn't that kind of mission. We weren't tracking anyone. We were the ones being tracked. The kids, Kane and Ava, they didn't sleep much. I could feel the buzz in their blood. Something inside them was vibrating, pulling tight like a wire strung too far. They weren't just scared. They were changing. And they weren't alone. Cassie met us at the safe house, a one-story ranger station long since decommissioned, tucked deep into a forest that didn't show up on Google Maps. She had a new scar across her jaw and the same "don't screw with me" eyes I remembered from the old days. "Two more awakened," she said as Tom unloaded the gear. "That makes 3 active subjects now. If even one of them goes unstable, we've got a wildfire on our hands." "They're not unstable," Tom said. Cassie glanced at me. "Yet." I didn't like her tone. Neither did the kids. Kane pulled Ava aside, while Cassie and Tom went over the files. I stayed close enough to listen. "They think we're weapons," Ava whispered. "We might be," Kane replied, "but I don't feel like one." Kane looked at me. "Do you think we're dangerous?" I held his gaze, then stepped closer, pressing my head to his chest. His breath caught. "I guess not," he said quietly. The storm rolled in hard that night. Wind against the windows, trees groaning. Inside, the kids slept in shifts. Tom stayed up at the kitchen table, shuffling through documents we'd recovered from Ellie's safety box. Project blueprints, gene sequencing charts, surveillance photos. One was of her, taken days before she vanished. She was standing near a bus stop, alone, looking over her shoulder. Her eyes were wide, not afraid, alert, like she knew. Tom traced her face with one finger. I should have never let her out of my sight. I rested my head on his boot. He didn't move. "We failed her, Duke," he whispered, "but I won't fail the others." Around 3 a.m., something strange happened. Ava woke up screaming. Not from a nightmare. This was different. She stumbled out of her sleeping bag, eyes wide, hand clutching her head. "They're speaking again," she gasped. Kane sat up, groggy. "Who?" Ava stared at the floor. "I don't know." "But it's getting louder." Cassie rushed over, already powering up her encrypted laptop. She scanned the network, then froze. "You're not going to believe this," she muttered. The laptop lit up with a blinking message. "Phase 2, activation confirmed." The words flashed 3 times. Then the screen went black. No input, no signal, just dead silence. Tom and I locked eyes. "This was never about just waking them up," he said. "It was about flipping a switch." Ava stood up straight, trembling. I think I know where she is." Kane blinked. "Ellie?" Ava nodded. "She's not far." Tom didn't question it. Neither did I. Because the thing inside her, the thing they put in all of them, it wasn't just memory. It was direction. A biological compass. And now it was pulling us towards something buried. We packed fast. Moved before first light. Ava led the way. Through back roads and frozen gravel paths, until we reached a clearing near the edge of the old quarry. That's where we saw it. A van, abandoned, doors open, and blood in the snow. Not much. Just enough to say someone had been there. Tom drew his weapon. Kane stayed back with Ava. I moved ahead, nose down. The scent hit me fast. Ellie, and something else. Fear. Not hers. Theirs. We followed the trail to a steel door half buried in the hillside. It took all 3 of them to pry it open. Inside was dark. Cold. But it smelled like her. And behind the smell, the echo of a heartbeat. Not just 1, 2. She was still alive. Somewhere in that place. Waiting. And whatever they'd tried to wake up inside her, it was awake now. There was something about that place. Something older than metal and deeper than stone. As we moved past the steel door, the air changed. Not just the temperature, but the weight of it. Like the air remembered screams. Tom swept his flashlight in a wide arc. The beam cut across concrete walls, rusted pipes, a row of broken lockers covered in mold. Ava walked ahead of us, slow, her eyes wide, but not afraid. "I've been here before," she whispered. "You sure?" Tom asked. She nodded. "Not with my body, just in my head." Kane stayed close behind her. He didn't say a word, but his breathing had changed, tight, quick. He was feeling it too. Me? I kept my nose low to the ground, every sense on high. And I smelled her. Ellie. Sweat. Metal. A trace of blood. But something else, too. A frequency I couldn't name. Like static under my skin. The corridor curved left, then dropped into a stairwell with no lights. Just a single red bulb glowing at the bottom, like an old wound. Tom led the way. I followed. At the bottom, we found a door with a digital lock, long since dead. Tom pulled out a crowbar from his pack. Ava stepped forward. "Wait." She pressed her hand to the keypad. The lock clicked. The door opened. No code. No force. Just her. On the other side was a room filled with old lab equipment. Glass tanks, wires, screens that still flickered with scrambled images, and in the center, a chair. Straps at the arms. Dried blood at the base. Kane stepped back. "They put us in those," he said quietly, "when we were too young to fight." Tom's jaw clenched. "This place wasn't just a lab," Cassie said. "It was a trigger station, a fallback site, in case one of the subjects escaped before full programming." "Like Ellie," Ava whispered. That's when I heard it. A voice. Soft, calling. My ears perked. It wasn't human, not really, but it was hers. "Duke." I turned, bolted down the hall before anyone could stop me. Tom yelled after me, but I couldn't wait. I knew it was her. Every cell in me did. I followed the voice through 2 turns, past a shattered mirror, into a small chamber where the walls hummed. There she was, strapped to a gurney, eyes open but distant. Her body was still, but her mind. She looked straight at me and smiled. "I knew you'd come," she said. I whined low, stepping close. She reached out with one trembling hand. I nuzzled her fingers. "You remember me?" I asked with my body, my breath. Her tears answered before her voice did. Tom and the others arrived seconds later. He froze in the doorway. "Ellie." She blinked slow. "It's inside me now," she said. "All of it." Cassie moved in fast, checking vitals, scanning the monitors still buzzing above her. "She's been plugged into something," she said. "A neural loop, memory mapping. They weren't interrogating her. They were downloading her." Tom stepped forward. "We're getting you out of here." "No," Ellie said. "We're getting them out." She looked at the machine beside her, a control panel. "I can shut it down, all of it, but I need to stay connected a little longer." Tom hesitated. I looked up at him. She wasn't asking to be saved. She was asking to finish what her father started. Cassie moved fast, opened her laptop, hooked into the control panel. "Give me 30 seconds, she said. "Once I trigger the cascade, it'll fry the servers. But we need to get clear before that happens." Ellie nodded. Kane took her hand. "You're not alone," he said. The room shook once, then again. A deep rumble from somewhere below. "Time's up," Cassie said. Tom grabbed Ellie, lifted her gently. We ran. Alarms sounded. Lights flashed. I stayed right beside her, never once breaking stride. When we hit the surface, snow was falling again. Smoke rose from the hillside. And behind us, the entrance collapsed. Gone. All of it. Gone. Tom set Ellie down in the snow, checked her pulse. She was breathing. Alive. Kane fell to his knees beside her. Ava just stared up at the sky. "I think we're free," she said. But even as she said it, I felt something else. Not peace. Not yet. Because whatever they buried in those walls, it didn't end there. It started there. We stayed off the grid for days after the collapse. Moved through state lines in a rusted-out van with no plates, windows covered with dust, the heater only working when we kicked it. Kane said we looked like a band of ghosts riding toward nowhere. He wasn't wrong. Ellie was healing, but slow. Her eyes stayed distant for a while, like they were still inside that place. Like some part of her hadn't come back up with the rest of us. She'd stare out the window during sunrise, clutching that old pocket watch from the vault, still ticking like it didn't care what it had survived. Sometimes I'd rest my head on her lap, and she'd run her fingers through my fur without realizing it. That's how I knew she was still in there. The part of her that remembered who she was before they woke her up. Tom drove mostly in silence. You could see the wheels turning in his head, always checking mirrors, calculating routes, questioning people who weren't there. He was trying to get ahead of something. Trying to stay 2 steps in front of a storm we couldn't see, but all felt coming. We made it to a safe house in Vermont, an old farmhouse left to rot until Cassie bought it under a false LLC. No cameras, no cell signal, a basement lined with lead. It was there that Ellie finally spoke again. She sat at the kitchen table, hands around a chipped mug of tea, the pocket watch sitting open beside her like it was listening too. "They built us to survive," she said. "But they also built us to remember. Not just our own lives, but someone else's." Kane leaned forward. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, eyes clearer than they'd been in days. "I see things, not in dreams, in flashes. I remember missions my father never told me about, faces I never met, and sometimes—" She paused. "Sometimes I hear their voices, the other kids, before they disappeared." Tom folded his arms. "You think they linked you all?" "They didn't just link us," Ellie said. "They mirrored us. Every time one of us woke up, it activated a ripple effect. That's what Phase 2 was really about, forcing the network online." Cassie pulled up the decrypted Helix files on the burner laptop. "There's something else here," she said. "Something I didn't catch before." She tapped the screen. A line of code blinked, then a name. "Project Shepherd," she read. "Handler protocols. Command directives." "What is it?" Kane asked. Cassie leaned back. "They didn't just make you. They trained someone to control you." Ellie closed her eyes. "I know who it is." Tom stepped forward. "Who?" She looked at him. "My mother." Silence fell over the room. "She was the failsafe," Ellie said. "If we got out of control, if we broke free of programming, she was the one they trusted to pull us back in." "But she ran," Tom said. "She ran because she realized they weren't building protectors. They were building weapons." I let out a low growl, more instinct than thought, because I knew what was coming next. "If she's still alive," Cassie said, "she's the only one who can shut it all down." Ellie nodded slowly. "And I think I know where she is." A map from the vault had included a final marker, one they hadn't connected before. A small outpost in the Rockies, labeled only with a code. Echo 9. Kane stood. "Then we go. We find her. We finish this." Tom looked at all of them, then at me. "You ready?" he asked. I stood, tail still, Ears forward. I'd been ready since Kandahar. We left the next morning, drove through sleet and fog, along back roads no one used anymore. The deeper we got into the mountains, the more the world seemed to disappear behind us. At the base of a dead ridge, we found what was left of Echo 9. A bunker, half swallowed by snow and time. The door was open. Inside, the air was stale and warm. Someone had been there recently. Ellie stepped in first, her breath caught. "She's here," she whispered. We moved deeper. Through a narrow hallway, past cracked walls and broken lights, until we reached a room filled with old monitors and radio gear. A woman stood at the far end, older, hair gone silver, a scar down her left cheek. She turned slowly and smiled. "Ellie," she said, "you finally found me." Ellie froze. "Mom?" I didn't move. None of us did. Because in that moment, we realized something. They hadn't just built us to carry memory. They built us to carry choice. And now the choice was hers. I stood at the edge of the room while the girl I'd protected watched grow, watched break, watched rise, took her first step toward the woman who brought her into this world, and then disappeared from it. Her mother, Lena, looked like she'd carried the weight of 3 lifetimes. Not just age in her face, but memory. The kind that settled in the bones and never left. She didn't rush forward, didn't cry, just opened her arms as Ellie stepped into them. No words. They didn't need any. Some things don't speak in language. They speak in trembles, in breaths, in the way a mother holds her daughter like she's afraid the world might shatter her all over again. Tom kept his hand on his sidearm, not because he didn't trust her, but because men like him, like us, we don't stop watching for danger, even when the war seems over. Cain and Ava stood close behind. The 2 kids who were never really kids at all, not in the way other children were. They had war bred into them, secrets stitched behind their eyes. But now they looked like something else, like they were waiting for permission to be more than what they were designed to be. And me, I sat, quiet. Watching the reunion unfold like a memory I hadn't lived but somehow remembered. Lena pulled back, looked at Ellie like she was measuring how much was left of the little girl she gave up. "I kept you hidden," she said softly. "But I never stopped watching. Not once." Ellie held up the pocket watch. "It led me here." Lena smiled. "That was your father's. He built the map," Ellie said. "Didn't he?" Lena nodded. "And I built the failsafe." Cassie stepped forward. "What kind of failsafe?" Lena turned. "One they never found. One they couldn't control." She walked across the room, pulled a tarp from the wall, revealing a console. Old tech, but humming with life. I copied the full Helix archive. The real one, not the fragments they gave their handlers. She tapped a code into the screen. Data flickered. Rows of names, faces, locations. Cain leaned in. "There's more of us." Lena nodded. 12 total. "You're 4. And the others?" "Still asleep," she said. "Or lost." Ava spoke, her voice steadier than it had ever been. "Then we wake them up, like you did for us." Lena turned to her. "I didn't wake you. She did." She pointed to Ellie, and Ellie looked at me. "Not just me," she said. "Duke did too." I blinked, didn't move, but my chest swelled. Tom smiled faintly. "You always had better instincts than the rest of us." "Some part of him always knew," Ellie said. before any of us did. They turned back to the console. Cassie plugged in her drive. "We can broadcast the sequence," she said. "Use the neural key embedded in their genomes. It'll trigger the reset protocol. Give them back their own minds." "But it has to be a choice," Ellie said. "They have to choose it, just like I did." Lena's eyes filled. "You were never supposed to be a weapon," she whispered. "You were supposed to be free." Tom checked his watch. "If we're doing this, we need to do it now." "They'll know soon enough we're here." Lena flipped the final switch. The broadcast began. Low, silent, invisible. But I could feel it in my chest. A hum. A release. The kind of sound you don't hear with your ears, but with your blood. Ellie stood tall. She didn't flinch. Not when the alarms outside began to scream. Not when the monitors showed a black convoy approaching from the ridge. Not when the first drone passed overhead. Tom raised his rifle. Cassie locked in next to him. Kane and Ava stood at either side of Ellie. And me, I stepped forward. Teeth bared, tail low, muscles tight. I knew what came next. They'd try to erase what we'd become. But we weren't theirs anymore. We weren't subjects, or files, or fragments of someone else's war. We were a pack, bound not by code, but by choice. Lena looked to Ellie. "Say the word." Ellie turned to us, to Tom, to Cassie, to the ones who were built in silence and found their voice. And to me, her oldest friend. "I'm ready," she said. The lights went out. Then the world came rushing in. They came for us. But this time, we were already awake, and we didn't run. We fought, not to destroy, but to defend the one thing they couldn't program into us: hope. Because in the end, we weren't made to obey. We were made to choose, and we chose each other. If you're still here with me, thank you. Not just for listening, but for hearing. You know, I never had words like you do. Just barks, growls, a wagging tail when I could. But deep down, I always wished someone would understand what I was trying to say. And maybe you just did. So if any part of my story touched something in you, just type 1 in the comments. That's it, just a 1. So I know I wasn't barking into the wind. And if you'd like to walk with me again someday, well, hit that subscribe button. Not because you have to, but because I've got more to share. Stories buried deep. Some harder than others, but all of them honest. I'll be here, waiting by the door. Until next time, stay safe out there, and never stop listening to what the heart knows before the mind does, because sometimes the dog was right all along.